Hey everyone, welcome back to SRC Names. So I thought I'd do something a little bit different today because today marks 2 years since I put Elliott at the top of my boys list. And so I thought, what better way to celebrate than to go back 2 years and check out the top 20 names back that. First of all, I wanted to show you some new names that I have added since the last video. I'm still adding more, so be prepared for the next video. Dara, I like as a boy's name with the GH at the end. It's pretty cool. I'm still getting used to that spelling though, but I do like it. I absolutely love the sound of the name Arter. I really like it. And I think it fits really well. Then we have Braylon for the boys. Then the girls, Jessamine is a name that Amaryllis suggested, and I really like it. Balin is one I came across recently. And then Aisha, without the E, making it the last name alphabetically in my A list. And then we have Raquel with an L-E, and I ended up really liking that spelling. Almost Spanish meets French in a way, so thought that was pretty cool. So now let's go back 2 years and check out my top 20 names from back then. So Elliott, of course, is my number one and has been for 2 years. Caleb was number one, and so it went to number two. And most of these names come from either having good associations with them or just really liking the sound. Most of them are both. So Calvin is number 3. It always has been in my top 5. And I just really like the sound of Calvin. And then Terrence was one that I was really getting used to the sound of and loving. In fact, Terrence was my number 2 when I first started collecting names. Then we have Kevin, which I really like the sound of. And I had known some older Kevins back then for the first time, and that made me think that it was more of a timeless name than I thought. Aaron is next, and again, I really like the timeless quality of the name, and also the sound and spelling. Then we have Corey. I knew some Corys who had been positive associations, but it felt a little bit dated to me, so I took it off eventually. I still really like the name though. Then we have Aiden, the more trendy spelling of Aiden, compared to A-I-D-A-N, which I prefer now. Then Peyton was on the list back then for a boy, even though now I prefer Peyton for a girl. Then we have Terry, which is the nickname for Terrence. I just really liked the sound of it back then. And then Harry would later rise up my list and then fall a little bit due to Harris and Harrison rising a little bit later. And then after Harry is Evan, which I ended up really liking the sound of. Same for Eric. And then Alex. I really liked the sound of Alex. I preferred it to Alexander, but I am starting to really get used to Alexander, and so I'm thinking about replacing Alex with Alexander in my top 20. Harrison was way down the list back then because I did not really know of any first name Harrisons. But I did really like the name and knew that it could be a first name. Tyler I put on my list because it sounded a lot like Taylor, which I really liked back then and still do today. Then we have Kellen, which reminded me of Kelly and other names like that. And I also knew a Kellen who was an interesting person. And then Chad has been a really great influence on me for a number of years, so I added his name, my friend, and I took it off because it wasn't really one of those timeless names. It reminded me of, it almost screamed like 60s or 70s to me. Then we have Jacob after that, which had been a popular name in the 2000s, and I still really like it. And Alec concludes the boys list. Now for the girls, Tara was number 1 and had been for the duration of name collecting up until that point, and really for a few months after that too. Caitlin was after that. I had really liked the name Caitlin, and I knew a few Caitlins too. Same with Casey. I really liked the name Casey and its various spellings. This was the one that I preferred, and I probably still do prefer this spelling. Then we have Carrie, which I knew some Carries who had been positive influences on me, and I really liked that name. Taylor was after that. I just really was crushing on the sound of the name Taylor back then. Katie came after that, and so I thought of it as an interesting full name in addition to it being a nickname for Caitlin or Catherine. And then Kara was after that. It wasn't as high up because something about it seemed off back then. I didn't know what it was. And it was actually the fact that I didn't really know any Karas. Then Kayla was after that because I really liked this one person I met maybe 10 years prior who was a nice person named Kayla. And same for Haley, in fact. And I really liked the sound of Haley, and so I figured why not put those two together and do Kaylee for the next one. I didn't know any Kayleys, but I still really liked the name. And then we have Karen. And this was long before I had heard of the Karen meme. But I eventually took it off because there were some other names that I liked better. But I still liked the sound of Karen and its various spellings. Same thing, in fact, for Kelly. That's also why I took that off the list. There were other names that I liked more. My tastes changed. Then Clarence was next because I had thought of Clara and Claire and thought Clarence was in fact a girl's name, and I was wrong. Claire was after Clarence, but without the I after the A. That was my preferred spelling at the time. Kate was after that. I thought it was a nice nickname for Katie and Caitlin and Catherine. Nice, sweet nickname. Clara was after that. I was further down the list because I didn't know of any Claras, but I still really liked the name. And then we had Tabitha. This was the first list where I preferred the more common spelling for Tabitha. All my other lists were where my spelling preference was the first Tabitha I ever encountered, which was Tabatha. So the other spelling really grew on me, and so I ended up really liking it. Then we have Tracy. I knew some Tracys who were, a couple Tracys, not all that many, who were great influences on me and friends. And then, and I really liked the name too. Carolyn was after that. Interestingly, Caroline was not on the list. Even though back then there was something about Caroline that was off for me, but even further back I tended to like Caroline more than Carolyn. so it didn't take long for Caroline to surge in my names list, top 20. And then after Carolyn is Avery, which was what I first, when I first discovered Avery for a girl, it was in a TV show. There was a contestant named Avery, and I ended up really liking the name. So those are my top 20 for boys and girls 2 years ago. And I hope you enjoyed, and thank you for watching.